Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zikin from City Sprouts. I hope you guys have been having a good virtual green Christmas so far. Uh, okay, so today I'll be sharing a bit about what City Sprouts is, and I guess the topic of today's sharing is really about our take on urban agriculture and I guess how we see urban agriculture as an industry in general in Singapore. So just let me share my screen very quickly. Okay. Yeah, so City Sprouts, I'm not sure how many of you guys have heard of us. We've only started I think a year and a half ago, and we are really an urban rejuvenation social enterprise. And by urban rejuvenation is we hope to empower communities through sprouting green spaces and programs. And very recently, I think about a year ago, we redeveloped part of Henderson Secondary School. If you live in the area in Redhill and Henderson, you would have known that this old school that is located at Henderson Road has been redeveloped into a 3-in-1 co-located space. And the space that we took over and redeveloped is the middle portion. So you can see this whole shaded area used to be the whole secondary school. And then we took over the urban farming portion. And we've redeveloped it into quite kind of an alternative concept. And it's an urban farm, but we also have different components within the space that also complement our vision and our mission. So the space now, we call it Sprout Hub, and the way we envision the space is to be a food and social hub. And the two main missions that we want to solve is, one, reconnect people to food, and second is to bridge social gaps, especially the one that's between the old and the young. So it really complements this pilot space that SLA is as implementing, having an urban farm in between a nursing home and a childcare center. So the goal is really to see how we can use farming or urban agriculture as a bridge to act between the elderly and the children. And of course, with all the programs and the concepts that we're bringing into the space, we don't want to just touch on these two social groups. Eventually, we hope to expand and extend our reach to other underserved social groups, such as kids with special needs, youth with disabilities, and so on. Yeah, so Sprout Hub, having been developed for the past 1 year, this is the direction that we're heading. So I'll share more a bit of how we've redeveloped this space. So this was taken slightly more than 1.5 years ago. This is the entire Henderson Secondary School as it was when this photo was taken. This whole area here used to be the technical building. And then this is where your science were, and then some of the PE rooms and so on. And this will be the childcare center. It's actually, we've been redeveloped. And then this center portion here is the school hall and the school canteen. And the school field is right here, you can see. And then the classrooms over here. I think there are 3 separate blocks. So right now, this photo was taken just about, I think 2 months ago. And then the whole space, you can see, has been transformed into quite a different setting. So this whole bridge is new. It's been redeveloped by Sparkle Thoughts, and then the whole idea of having this flagship center by Sparkle Thoughts is really getting more open space and open classroom space for kids to explore the outdoor and to incorporate nature as part of their curriculum. And right here, you can see the nursing home is still under construction. And here, this is our first physical space. So City Sprouts is the company, and we created this whole brand called Sprout Hub. And you can see we've redeveloped the entire school field. And then later on, I'll be also showing you what we've done within the indoor space. Yeah, so I wanted to go through a bit about the transformation that we we brought to the space. And you can see on the left, the school field is exactly like what you would expect in a typical secondary school in Singapore. And then we also have the parade square that's on the right. Used to have a netball court, and you see the tall high fence at the back. So this is again what we've done to the space. We've built greenhouses in the school field. So the model that we've chosen for the space is slightly different from what you expect from an urban farm or farms in Singapore. Instead of going to the conventional production-based farms, what we've done is we've created these greenhouses and like an allotment where we can rent out to either hobbyists or farmers who are aspiring to start up a new system, testing new technologies and innovative methodologies to grow food. And what we've really created in this space is kind of create a test bed and a test bed of sorts for people to try different new ways of growing things or even conventional ways. So if you were to enter into the space, what we really want you to experience is there's no one single way of growing food. We want people to see that there's really more than just your traditional soil-based or what the government is trying to push, or the vertical farming. So we really want people to experience this whole mix and diverse range of growing methodologies. And one of the reasons why we've adopted this model instead of a traditional conventional production-based farm is we think people really need to be more in touch and reconnected to the source of the food, the origin of the food, and really seeing where food comes from. And the reason why we came to this conclusion is we've really realized that people take for granted where food comes from. And I think if you were to ask, let's say a child nowadays where bak choy comes from, or even where a whole chicken come from, they would say a plastic bag in a supermarket. So we really want to see how we can some of this appreciation of food and really letting people experience what it is like to have an urban farm in the middle of the city, which is why we came up with this allotment model. And right in the center of the field, actually, we've also created this ke tai structure. And I think a lot of people misunderstood the idea of having a ke tai structure. They think that it will be a performance stage, but the whole intention behind bringing in this whole structure in the middle of the space is we wanted to create an icon, and this was meant to be an open classroom where we conduct workshops and talks, and specifically workshops that surrounding community storytelling. And we really want to bring back the heritage and the history of the space, especially the school, how it was built 40 years back, and it kind of got decommissioned and emerged with Bukit Merah Secondary. So we want to highlight some of these myths and folklore behind Redhill, and also, for example, how Redhill got its name. If you guys know the story of the kid growing bananas to save the village, and how he got killed by the Sultan at that time. So we wanted to use this space to kind of revisit some of those narratives and challenging people to think deeper of the space that they're in, and especially bringing back the idea of how some of these stories would get lost, when we redevelop spaces. And we are thankful that, we kind of get this whole space and having this structure to really bring life to the farm instead of just having greenhouses or just seeing things grow. So we work with this group of artists called Myths on the Redhill. They specifically curate programs like this and also bring life to the space. And one of the signature event, I'll be sharing a bit more later, they invite people to come down to share their stories. They bring their personal items, they weave into a loom, and kind of also talk more a bit about how they experience Redhill as a space. And here we have the school canteen before we redeveloped it. And you can see it's, again, a very typical setting and scene that you would expect in a secondary school. And this was when these photos were taken before we got the space. This was during the tender stage when we visited the site. And you can see the store labels were still intact at that time. And what we've created now is our primary event space. We also brought in new F&B vendors into the space to occupy and serve our patrons. But more importantly, this is a space where we envision to create conversations to get people and challenge their thoughts on especially topics about urban agriculture and how they can be involved in this national movement of food security. So on the left, you can see this photo that was taken end of 2019 when we had our first panel sharing. So this is a space where we can hold events like farmers markets, workshops, talks, and also panel sharings like this. And we also have a series of food vendors in the space where we really curate the selection and offerings that we want to bring into the space, especially vendors who are more sustainable in terms of sourcing their food and also um, um, getting people to think about disposable packaging and so on. So, for example, Pyros, you can see this brand over here. They've been in the coffee roasting industry for more than 30 years. And what we got them to help us do is one, they offer roasting on demand. So if you want specialty beans, you can come here and they roast it on the spot for you and you can bring it home. And secondly, we take most of their coffee grounds and then we have a compost heap in the farm, and then we kind of also contribute all these food waste in the F&B space into the compost, and eventually when the compost is mature, we distribute it to the farmers in the space. And then on level 2, right above the canteen space, we have this indoor school hall. And you can see it used to be a badminton court with a stage. And it has very beautiful infrastructure and architecture. You can see the red truss that's still relatively new when we moved in. And what we've done to this space when we pitched it to SLA is we wanted an indoor agriculture platform, a platform for indoor farmers, vertical farms to share and exchange some of the innovative methodologies that they are researching and implementing in the space, and also a pilot space for them to kind of see how viable and how successful their system is, and eventually hoping to springboard them to a more commercial stage. So it's really just a pilot space before they enter a full-scale production. So right now, what we've done is we brought in one of our tenants called Singro. I believe some of you guys have heard of it. They are a startup from NUS doing mostly strawberries. So they develop tropic resistant varieties of strawberries, and what they really specialize in is hybridizing these varieties, and they really are able to make strawberries flower and fruit even in a tropical climate. So you can see this setup here. It's a 6-meter tall rack. They have I believe 8 racks within this space. They took a portion of the school and built their pilot system. And one of the major unique point about them is you would normally expect indoor farms to be air conditioned and in a very controlled environment. Of course, they still maintain very specific controls within this pilot setup, but they don't have air cons because their strawberries are able to withstand the humidity and the temperature in a local climate. So they only need fans to ventilate and circulate the air within the space, but they are able to still produce strawberries despite the temperature. So that's one unique thing that we really love about them. And yeah, so this was during the setup period when they were building their racks, and despite the look and feel of what you're seeing here, the racks don't circulate, they don't go up and down like what you will see in Sky Greens, for example. So they are static racks, and they service the racks through robotic arms and also scissors lift like this. And also some of the other tenants that we have in the space. So we kind of are really like an aggregator of sorts within Sprout Hub. So the previous speaker, David, he's the co-founder of Little Fries company. So they are also one of our tenants. They have their ancillary office here, and they do some R&D. They grow some rice, and they do some communal workshops where they invite people to grow some of the rice and give out rice kits and participate in some of our events and outreach. And we also have Bewilder on the right. This is Kiet. He's an artist, but mushroom is his medium. And on top of just growing the more commonly found edible mushrooms, he grow a lot of more medicinal ones like Ling Zhi and Cordyceps. So if you do come by Sprout Hub, you can see some of these tenants during the activations within the space. And in our attempt to create this whole space, really focusing on food security and urban farming, we also wanted to weave in another element of emphasizing on healthy living and wellness. So we brought in Meta Fitness. They are a fitness group led by Wei Chong. He's the lead trainer and head coach. So we incorporated this CrossFit outdoor training program to complement the whole space. So we do run classes within the space, and eventually we also introduce some yoga classes, maybe yoga in the outdoors. So these are some of the programs that we are looking at. So on top of the space and aggregating the different farmers, different tenants within the space, one major thing or one major pillar for City Sprouts within this Sprout House space is really to curate programs. And one of the things that we did during Circuit Breaker, because we couldn't hold any events and outreach program, was to grow leafy greens for some of the frontline healthcare workers. So we worked with Alexandra Hospital and Ng Teng Fong Hospital to grow some of these batches of leafy greens for the healthcare workers. And then some of our other programs, our signature program is Farm Day Out. So some of these photos that you see are taken during our October run. Farm Day Out is a day where we get the public to come in to visit our greenhouses, especially and to get the farmers to be in there to engage the visitors, to tell them more about some of the systems that are piloting and some of the initiatives that they'll be running in the space. So we have a really diverse and good range of farmers within the space. So we have hobbyists who are just doing raised bed gardening, soil-based and very traditional, conventional way of farming. And we also have the completely other side of the spectrum, which is more vertical and more technologically advanced. And you can see on this top right corner, we have Straits Agriculture. They are specialized in aeroponics. So when people come in for Farm Day Out, they really get to see this whole spectrum of different ways of doing farming. And you can see on this right corner as well, this is Little Rice Company. So they are doing some rice growing demo. So Farm Day Out, moving forward, this will be one of our signature events as well. And yes, on the Ke structure that I was telling you about, Myths on the Red Hill, they also have this signature event called Copy and Myths. They invite visitors down to chat over coffee, and more importantly, share some of the narratives and community stories that they have heard about in Red Hill. And then they end it off with quite a cool weaving workshop. They bring personal items like your chessboards, your journals, and maybe some toys that you've played when you were a kid. And then using these items, they tell their own stories about their upbringing and their childhood and other topics, and then they weave into a loom. Yeah, so one of the other events that they ran recently was a field trip around Red Hill, more focusing more on heritage as well as design. And some of the pit stops that they made was like Red Hill Market, Enabling Village, and of course they end off at Sprout Hub, at where the Myths on the Red Hill is. So it's really focusing on how to challenge people to think more about the different locations within their neighborhoods. And this one is specifically in Red Hill, getting people to visit spaces using Google Earth. And you see the photo on the right is a screenshot at Red Hill Market, getting people to see the different design elements and the design premise that is factored in when the space was developed. And we worked with Design Singapore as well to curate this virtual tour. And City Sprouts during this whole COVID period also ran several workshops for online workshops with different parties like Little Cookhouse, and this is a home composting workshop that we work together with Little Cookhouse to teach kids how to do composting at home. And then on the right is a terrarium making workshop that we did. Yeah, so that kind of summarizes what City Sprouts does within Sprout Hub, and this is really our first physical location, and our main focus is urban agriculture. So, as you can see, this space we really have a very different take on farming and also agriculture, because we really move away from what 30 by 30 means generally for the local population, instead of focusing on building capacity and building the technical expertise to boost food security. We want to complement the whole movement through education, because we feel like we really need more ground up effort to get people to appreciate food more, to appreciate the origins of food. And by doing that, we complement boosting food security locally, and through that we feel that people will appreciate food more, and of course hopefully the end goal is that they will waste less, and also be inspired and empowered to take up ownership over growing their own food. And yeah, maybe during this time I will start to also take questions, if anyone has any questions. Oh, I think there's already one question. How do you start and manage to get approval for using the space? This is an open tender by Singapore Land Authority. So about a year and a half ago, they released a tender for the space, and specifically it was supposed to be used for urban farming. So we had to compete with other tenderers to submit proposals, and we have to go through quite an intensive process of answering questions and also going for interviews and reviewing our proposals. And finally, when they awarded us the tender, we took over and implemented our concept. Yes. Maybe I will also share more about why I started City Sprouts with my partner Zach. And I think one of the things that people don't know about me is I come from Malaysia, and I grew up in this small town called Ipoh. A lot of people would associate Ipoh with Ipoh Hor Fun, and what I think is it's actually known for mostly its tin mining history. And this here is a photo of me and my family. We do a lot of gardening ourselves, and my grandfather is actually a vegetable wholesaler, so that was always within me. And I really was brought up in an environment where there were conversations surrounding food, and we would often talk about sharing our harvest, and we also get harvest shared with us. So there's always this very deep connection, deep sense of connectedness with the land, and we feel that we are living off the land. And when I came over to Singapore, I wouldn't say it was a major culture shock, but it was definitely a realization that people don't have that typical connection. And I really wanted to see and explore how to bring a part of that of me to the community here, and seeing how the government is really pushing towards food security and getting the nation more involved in growing food. I thought it was a really good opportunity to see how we can introduce some of these concepts into Singapore. And when the tender came up, we were really excited, because it was really a space that we could unlock that potential. Having that space within a childcare center and a nursing home, we thought that was also a perfect setting for us to also reach out to underserved groups like the elderly, and also the children within the Redhill area. And if you guys are familiar with the demographics there, the aging population within Redhill is it's more prominent than other parts of Singapore. So that's, I think, one of the reasons that the master plan within this old Henderson Secondary School was kind of drafted for that purpose. So we look, moving forward, only having taken that space for a year and a half, we still do see a lot of potential, and we are very excited to see how we can finally roll out our programs and events when the circuit breaker, after the COVID-19 restrictions are eased a bit more. So hopefully 2021 will be a better year for us, because for the whole of last year, or this year, sorry, we haven't been able to do much of our outreach and programs. Yeah, so if you are awake, and if you are around, interested to find out more, do drop by. Our address is 102 Henderson Road. You can just Google Sprout Hub. You should be able to find us, or you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, our username is city_sprout. I will leave the information on chat, and you guys can find out more. And if you guys have any questions, do reach out to us through Instagram or Facebook, or our email is hello@citysprouts.com.sg. Yes, so do drop us hello, or just ask any questions if you have any. Thank you for your time today. I hope you guys will continue on this virtual green Christmas market, and wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Bye.